Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to M1 Racing and our live coverage of round 6 of the G-Force Racing Elite League. My name is Mark, and I'm going to be your host for the next 90 minutes or so. And thank you ever so much for joining us. If you're new to M1 Racing and the G-Force Racing Elite League, you are very, very welcome. And if you're returning to us from previous rounds and previous seasons, thank you for coming back, and we hope you enjoy the next hour and a half of your Wednesday with us here. Pete is with me as usual, behind the scenes, monitoring the chat and keeping an eye on all the racing that we're not able to cover live on the stream. We are a man down, though, in the commentary box this week. Our good friend Rio is taking a well-deserved break, so I think they may be watching from the beach somewhere, but we hope they're having a very relaxing time, and they'll be back with us in a couple of weeks' time. If you would like to keep us company, please do so. You'll need to follow us on Twitch with a verified email, and then you should be able to use the chat box and say hi and let us know where you're watching from around the globe today. Now, we're going to have plenty to talk about today. We have both a sprint and a feature race coming to you for round 6, so that's going to keep us very, very occupied. But I did just want to take a moment just to make a very short announcement for the benefit of our regular viewers. We got some sad news this week that David T has had to give up his full-time seat at Haas. David has had some very positive changes in his own personal life, so it does mean he can no longer join us on our Wednesday races, which is very sad for us and the other drivers. But the excellent news is that David T has actually moved over to the FIA team for G-Force Racing, so we're not losing him entirely from this particular set of leagues, and so he's going to be helping me and the rest of the FIA team with all the post-race incident reports. I'm very delighted about that because David T has lots of experience in that area, and David's also going to keep maintaining the GFR stats for us, which we touched on last week, and we're going to continue to use throughout today and throughout the season ahead. So my thanks to David T for being part of this league and a great influence on us as the league has developed, and we wish him very well in his new role, and we very much welcome him to the FIA team. The other piece of sad news we got just before we came on air is that today is Joe Bean's last race with GFR. So we're also saying goodbye to Joe this week. So we've got our fingers crossed for them to have a really cracking race. Last week they finished on the 5th corner of Spa. So we're very much hoping they get to the end. And SS7 will be looking for a new teammate at Mercedes. So if you're watching today and have yet to get involved in GFR and fancy getting out on the track with this amazing set of drivers, then head over to the Discord server. The link to it is on our Twitch channel and on our YouTube channel. Click on that link, sign up, and you could be out there with these folks with us next week. And more about next week a little bit later on. But we've got loads of racing to get to, and we're going to get straight to it in just a moment. Let me drop the music down just briefly. We're watching Obo come around on their first hot lap, but what I want to set the scene here is show you the results from last week in Spa in Belgium. If you weren't with us next week and you've never watched anything with G-Force Racing before, this is the one to go and watch the replay of. It was wheel to wheel all the way through the race, literally from corner 1 right to the very last lap. SHS was our victor once again, taking another victory. I think that's 3 in a row now for SHS. Mac T came home in second for Ferrari. Really judged their strategy absolutely spot on last week, and as you can see, only fractions of a second away from SHS in front of them. So SHS did not get away last week from any of our drivers. Emeleki benefited from a last corner attempt to get up onto the podium from loss. So Emeleki was back on the podium for the first time in quite some while, and also setting a fastest lap last week with a 1:44.373. But I think the story from last week was Lost and SHS battled it out for the lead for pretty much most of the race, and just sadly faded away towards the very, very end. But I think Lost's strongest race with GFR to date, And I've got my fingers crossed for another strong performance from the McLaren driver here as well. Their teammate Spicy also went well last week, finished eventually down in 8th, but the McLaren team were very strong in Belgium, and perhaps they can carry that through to here in Austria. So let us get rid of that. We'll look at driver standings and constructor standings a little bit later on. We'll have a gap between the qualifying here, the sprint race, and the main feature race as well. So plenty of time for us to take a look at other aspects of the league and where all our drivers are. We've got some early times on the board already. So SHS continuing their strong form, setting the fastest lap so far, 1:04.022. Joe Bean looking to go out with a bang. So 1:04.495 provisional second on the front row of the grid for them and Mercedes. M. Dorling, who has been a really strong driver in recent races, has grown into this league and is putting in some strong performances week on week. They're currently provisional third with a 1:04.549, and we're with their teammate Obo here, who's set a time of 1:05.377, and that's putting them in provisional 7th. But we've got a number of other drivers out there. We're going to go down to see where... Oh, it's a bad time to come to NRG Panzerotto, who has taken a trip off into the grass to visit the barriers. We'll come away from them. SS7 is... Yeah, it looks as though SS7 is on a hot lap. So they're just coming up to turn 3 here. They are getting out of the way. Okay, so maybe not quite ready for a hot lap with SS7. Here is Spicy Nuts, who went really well last week. At one point, were battling with their own teammate, Lost. And they're setting an early time of 1:04.692 for Spicy. I think we can get the... 2 McLaren drivers up there. We have no Lost at the moment. I don't know if Lost is not going to join us this week. Very much hope that they do. We are missing some drivers, but we do have 15 out there at the moment. We've got a couple of new names as well. So Day 500, I believe, is Let's Go Shumi RFK from last week. Maybe if they're watching as well as driving, they might confirm that for us in the Twitch chat here. And we've also got Sancho Killer, absolutely brand new, I believe, to the league, driving for AlphaTauri on an outlap at the moment. I do see Day 500 just come over the start-finish line, so we might jump on board with him as we do a hot lap of the track here in Austria, 4.3 kilometres long, very short and very fast this track. 3 DRS zones for our drivers to negotiate, which helps the drivers stay very, very close together, and it's going to give us some incredible racing here today. I don't think it's a particular favourite with our drivers, but from a spectator's perspective, apologies for the break-up on the stream there, folks. Hopefully that will sort itself out. Yeah, it does. I think it will help us from a spectator's perspective that we will get lots of wheel-to-wheel action here around this track in Austria. So Day 500 here, coming around the back of the circuit, heading towards turn 9 of 10. Literally only 10 corners around Austria. Through the turn 10 here, back over the start-finish line, DRS will be open. Day 500 for Red Bull, setting a time of 1:05.046, puts them in provisional 7th at the moment. So Petty's telling me we've got M. Dorling coming round to set a time. One's setting a good time so far, 1:04.688. Okay, we're on board with M. Dorling. They are setting up just to come round the final corner, turn 10 here. They've pulled out of that, so not quite ready to make that. So, yeah, so M. Dorling will conserve those tyres, go around one more time. Let's come away from M. Dorling in the Alfa Romeo. Got Emma Leckie down here. And M1 Righty is back with us this week. So last week, SHS had to do all the work for Alpine. So M1 Righty is back. So we've got both Alpine drivers out today, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on everyone else to try and stay with the fastest. Oh, my word. Enormous crash between M1 Righty and a Red Bull. We didn't see exactly... Well, there is only the one. No, there are 2 Red Bulls out there. So there's Matthew M and Day 500. We didn't see exactly which one it was. but that has taken M1 Righty out of qualifying. They will be starting at the back of the grid. So whether or not the Red Bull driver didn't see them coming, we do see Lost joining actually, or they've just left, but hopefully they will be back. So Lost is going to be with us. That's good news. But dreadful news for M1 Righty, but will give us an opportunity to see M1, I am sure, come through the field pretty rapidly. But that looked like a really heavy hit for the Alpine there. And I can expect the FIA will be a little bit busy. So Pete is telling me that Spicy Nut's coming around to start a lap. Hopefully this will be a hot one. We'll ride on board with Spicy as we come around the last corner, turn 10, setting up car on the right hand side, getting out of the way. That's what we do like our drivers to do, not to impede our drivers on hot laps. We're coming down to turn 1, braking just before 50 metre board. Try and get on the power as quickly as we can. We want to take as much speed up this hill as we possibly can. And we're going to head up to the corner that I think is going to cause the most trouble today. Braking around about 100 metres, getting right down probably into second gear, third gear for Spicy, struggling to get back on the power. You can see the back end trying to step out as we head down towards turn 4. We will see some overtakes into turn 4 here. Spicy looks like slightly lost the back end as they came around there. Back on the power, we're going to drop down the hill. Sharp turning on this corner here. We don't want to get on the inside curb. That will unsettle the car and almost inevitably spin the car. So we stay clear of the inside curves around Austria. And you see Spicy really getting lifted up over those curves. Then we're going to go round turn 9. Carrying a lot of good speed through 9. Now through 10. Just clipping the inside curb. Back on the power. DRS open. Spicy looking to improve on their 104.692. Doesn't manage to do that. So they are staying currently in 8th spot. We're going to bring up our sector time view. And we can see in the top right corner of your screen, folks, if you want to track the sector times, that will help us see which drivers are improving sector by sector. Yeah, so a lot of chat in the drivers' chat at the moment about that crash with M1. And we will have to wait and see the replays of that after the race is over. But M1 is still in with a shout, of course. We've got 2 races here. So we've got the sprint and then the feature race. And the results of the sprint race are going to set the grid for the feature race also. So not all lost for M1, or indeed Lost, who is with us but is obviously not qualifying. So both Lost and M1 starting at the back, and 2 of our faster drivers will be trying to come through this field as quickly as they can. M. Dorling is maybe just set a time, 104.549, and keeping out of the way of other drivers there. Mac T is back with us this week, the only Ferrari driver. We haven't seen J Repo for a little while, which is a shame. So Mac T flying the flag for Ferrari at the moment, currently provisional third, a 104.346 for them, and finished second last week in Belgium with a really stunning drive by Mac T for the Ferrari team. Wands has found a track that is perhaps suiting their style. A 104.335 puts them provisional second. Our drivers will be leaving it to the last minute for one more lap. You see the majority of them all in the pits at the moment. We just have a handful out on a hot lap. SHS, I think, maybe has just done one. We'll bring up the tyres. That's usually my biggest clue. Yeah. So Pete says SHS was slow by 0.5 on that last lap, so not improving, 104.022. I expect some of our drivers may hit the 103s before we are done with qualifying here. Let's get down to... Peter's telling me 53% chance of rain, so there is every possibility that it's going to this may be the time. So if it starts raining before the end of qualifying, this could be the starting grid for the sprint race. So day 500 setting a time of 105.046. Oh no, they are just starting. That's the time that they are looking to beat. So we're back with day 500. Sancho Killer has retired, so they've had enough of qualifying for today. 104.869 has them a provisional 11th on the grid at the moment. We'll stay with day 500 just to see as they come through sector 2 in case they are improving. So it's a 105.046 they are looking to beat. And we're heading down towards turn 9. No, my apologies. We're into turn 7 and 8 here. And you will see some of our drivers taking quite a wide line, using a lot of the exit curb on the way out there. Now we're heading into the area where the pit entry is, and we will talk a bit about the pit entry and the challenges for our drivers a little bit later on. Day 500 coming over the line improves by 300ths of a second, so stays in 12th at the moment. So we've got some more drivers. We are definitely going to go on board with Joe Bean as it is their last race with G-Force Racing. They've been an excellent contributor to the league since they joined. A really fast driver. Hasn't had all the luck, and particularly last week were unfortunately run into a racing incident with Alex 1. Took both the Williams and the Mercedes driver out last week. So we never really got to see where Joe would finish there. But we are going to miss them here, as I know SS7, their teammate, will do also. So let's jump on board with Joe Bean for their final qualifying lap with G-Force Racing. Coming in to turn 1, we'll want to get back on the power. We see Joe's really smooth driving style, no wheel spin coming out of there. Back on the power, up the hill, as we head into what is quite a tricky right-hand turn here. Real sharp right angle. Rotate the car back on the power. Joe's ever so good on that throttle as we accelerate into the third DRS zone. There is a car on the right hand side but staying well out of the way of us. I think that's a Williams. We brake again slightly downhill, take a little bit of the inside curve, get back on the power. Joe trying to beat their time with 104.495, keeping the power in as we go round turn 7 and 8. Personal best from Joe in sector 2 as we're heading down to the final corners here. You can see this lap around Austria is over ever so quickly, and I think Joe's had to pull out that one. I think they struggled as they came round turn 8 there. Sorry, turn 9 there. Yeah, indeed, they lost an awful lot of time, had to back out of that. So I don't think Joe will go one more time, or if we just keep it planted. But the ERS will now be depleted. We'll go to their teammate, SS7. Who is just about to start a hot lap. Well, they, of course, all chasing SHS to beat that time of 104.022. Mac T has improved to 104.135 within 1/10 of SHS, but not quite fast enough to take pole position. So SS7 is one of the contenders for that potential spot. All of our drivers will know Austria incredibly well. It's one of those tracks that regularly appears in the ranked races, is often used in the open lobbies because of its close racing. So I won't be surprised to see many of our drivers very close to each other in terms of qualifying, and that's hopefully going to give us some excellent racing when we get underway in the sprint in a few moments' time. SS7 coming round through sector 2, gets 2 wheels on the gravel there, and that unfortunately for SS7 is not going to improve on that time. So looks like SS7 is indeed SS7 backing up. SHS, I'm being told, is purple in sector 1. Indeed they are, just by 5/10 of a second. Sorry, 500ths of a second. But seems to have lost a little bit of that through sector 2. So we're coming around to the end of the lap. We have the checkered flag is out now for qualifying. So when our drivers go over the line, that is the end of their qualifying. SHS trying to improve. Will they get into 103s? Oh, not quite according to my timing screen. 104.005. There was a yes from Pete in my ear, but I think they only just missed out there. So really great effort from SHS. We've got NRG just coming over the line with a 104.339. Matthew M for Red Bull has come into the pit, so they are 6th on the grid. And that is the end of qualifying. So this is our starting grid for the sprint race, which will be getting underway in just a moment. We'll get the final classification coming up, but no times there from Lost or M1 Righty. So 2 very fast drivers starting at the back of the grid will, even if they don't get on to the front two positions. They will be wanting to move up as quickly as they can, but there'll be an awful lot of traffic for them to negotiate as they make their way round. We're back on board here with SS7, who has qualified there in 11th spot. Not the greatest performance from SS7, who's had a bit of an in and out season, and there, I did see a spot of rain there, so we could have rain on the way imminently. SHS is on pole. Mac T is alongside them for Ferrari. Wands, brilliant from Wands. Third spot for Aston Martin, and Spicy, another great qualifying from Spicy, so they're in fourth. NRG alongside Matthew M, so the Alpha alongside the Red Bull. Alex, good qualifying time from them in seventh alongside Joe B. So we're going to see if Joe can make their way up. Emma Leckie alongside M. Dorling. SS7 alongside Sancho Killer. Day 500 alongside Obo. And I think it's them. Well, we can't see that on the screen here, folks, but then I think it's lost. And M1 Righty will be on the back row of the grid. We do see a penalty there for, I think, the Red Bull. So that most likely was for that collision with M1 Righty, which ended M1's qualifying, unfortunately for them. But it does mean we get some really interesting stuff as we go into the racing here. Let me bring up for you the driver's standings as they currently are from Belgium. And the rain is coming down, so this really mixes things up, folks. It's chucking it down, so this could get interesting. SHS is currently leading the way by a fair old margin from their teammate M1 Righty. Joe Bean, who leaves us after this race, does have 52 points, so those are points banked for them and for Mercedes. But their teammate SS7 is in fourth. So the Mercedes team very, very strong. As I say, SS7 looking to replace Joe as soon as they can. Mac T in fifth, and if their qualifying is anything to go by, could be moving up the standings. David T leaves us with 38 points for them and Haas. So if you would like to drive for Mercedes or for Haas, come and check out the Discord server, and you could be out there with these drivers next week. It's going to be very, very interesting. I'm not going to spend any more time on that because we are going to have the rain to contend with. You can see at the corner of our screen here, the drivers are lined up on the grid. There's no formation lap. So when we see the 5 red lights, we are going to be racing on a very wet Austrian track. All right, folks, let's go racing. Tons of wheel speed for all of our drivers as they try and get away. We'll keep on this view just for a moment, but then we will look as the McLaren's gone sideways. We were going to see all sorts of carnage there. I think that was Spicy Nuts losing it on the way into turn one. We're with Red Bull. We're with the Red Bull who've got past the Williams there of Alex. So Matthew M moving up into fifth. Our drivers have now got to get used to this very wet track. Matthew M's done well immediately. The front three have got away, so they were able to steer clear of that chaos. We're following the Red Bull at the moment, so SHS has led the group away. Mac T's gone with them, and Wands also, but then we've got all of the action happening down below. Joe Bean's already made their way up and is going round the outside of Emma Leckie. Looks as though they've made that one work. So they will be looking to get past Alex as quickly as they can, and perhaps they like the wet here more than they do the dry. So Joe is already right on the back of the Williams as they come around turn 9 into turn 10 now. Maybe they'll use the ERS, which replenishes itself much more quickly in the wet, will allow these drivers to get past. Wish I had a much better view of the McLaren and the Mercedes and the Williams. We've got one now, so Joe will be trying to find a way past as they come up the hill towards turn 3 here, and stopping whilst you're still braking uphill in the wet is really tough. Joe has made it past, so Joe moves up into fifth, so really limiting the damage for them. And talking about damage from qualifying, we've got SS7 and Lost and M1 Righty looking to make their way up as quickly as they can. Really close battle between M1 and Lost, so we could see these two dragging each other forward. There will be no DRS in these conditions at all, so it will all have to be on driver ability and the pace of their individual cars and their setups. And it's really tricky for our drivers to pick the right setups, particularly if perhaps the feature race is going to be dry. And we've got Mr. Hannes in the Twitch chat. Mr. Hannes, great to have you with us on the Twitch. We wish you were out there racing. And I know David T would probably like you to be getting points for Haas as well. But hopefully you'll be back with us next week. And we'll see what Lost does as they move their way up. I think they were unfortunately unable to join us during qualifying. So that's why they were at the back of the grid. But it's all on them now to try and make it all the way up, particularly as their teammate Spicy has dropped all the way down now to 15th. place, and M. Dorling's down there as well, so I suspect picked up some damage and probably had to pit. So M1 and Lost not really making too much ground, as much as I thought they might do, and indeed they seem to be stuck a little bit behind Emeleki, so it's not working out for M1 or for Lost at this moment in time. M1 is there in 10th, but it's, as I say, stuck behind Emeleki. Now Emeleki with his what a good time to come to Emeleki, who was really struggling for grip there, and that just opened the door very easily for for M1 to come through. So M1 will now be trying to get after SS7 in front of them as quickly as they can. M1 obviously starting last, so already up to 9th. We've only got 12 laps here. So it's going to be over very, very quickly, around a lap, which only takes just over a minute. So drivers cannot hang around if they need to move up the field. SHS MacT Wands is still our lead group, but I am going to go up to Matthew M, who has closed in on Wands and is putting them under some pressure. Matthew M also has Joe Bean behind them also. So Joe Bean trying to find a way past. It is not so easy to overtake round here without the DRS. So it's all about the traction, and that is allowing some of these drivers to hold on to those positions. And Wands is defending like crazy. MacT is still sticking with SHS, 7/10 back. Wands has dropped back 2 seconds from that group, and now is defending, as we see, from Joe and El Alex. I do apologise about the glitchiness of the stream today, folks. We will see if we can sort that out once this race is over. Perhaps have a slight internet issue today. Pete was telling me that NRG has gone wide, and that's dropped them back a little bit. So NRG down there in 9th. Track limits is also going to play a significant role here today as well. I'm surprised we don't have any track limits already, but those track limits come when our drivers go beyond the white lines, all 4 cars beyond the white lines at the edge of the track. If they do that 3 times, they will get an automatic 3-second penalty from issued by the stewards in the game. We don't have any yet. We do have a yellow flag in sector 1 and 3, so on the start finish straight. We have lost Sancho Killer, so they have, so Sancho Killer has retired in the pits. We've got a virtual safety car, and I think that was for, there is someone right down here coming up in, was that Spicy? No, Spicy going, there's M. Dorling. I think that may have been Day 500. Yes, indeed. So Day 500 does have damage to their front wing, major wing damage. So they will have to go in. Virtual safety car will not allow the cars to bunch up, as we get a great shot of the missing front wing from the Red Bull there. So our drivers will hold station. The game will give them a Delta 2 drive 2, and they will then wait for the green flag to come out. It does look as though everyone is back on circuit, so hopefully that virtual safety car will clear very, very quickly. Virtual safety car is still out, so we come back up to the top very briefly. So MacT is so VSC has ended. We're back under race conditions, and Day 500 picks up a penalty for speeding under the safety car, or under the virtual safety car. And we do have some penalties out there now, folks, and you can see those from the black and white flags next to the various names. And it's a drive-through penalty for Day 500, so they are into the pits now. Well, they may not be able to serve that drive-through as both a pit stop to repair damage and also to serve the penalty. So I suspect they are going to have to come round and back in again to do either repair the damage or take that penalty. So we will see. We are back in under race conditions. SHS is being closely followed by McT, but starting to pull out a bit of a gap. Joe Bean now up into third place, so really doing a great job of moving up the field after a relatively lowly starting position. Matthew Bean has got past Wands, so and actually indeed drivers going into the pit, so I wonder if there's some damage picked up by our drivers, or perhaps they're looking at different tyres. Let us bring that up for us to take a look at, because that might well influence what our drivers do from this point. Right, no, we're all on intermediate. So these are the drive-through penalties that Pete was telling me about for some of our drivers. So, and it looked as though Matthew M hit the wall on the way out of the pits, which will not do their car any good at all. So Wands and Matthew M sadly losing out quite dramatically from that event. So let us move up to the front of the grid. So SS7 and M1 Righty's got past SS7. SS7 not a fan of driving in the wet, I know that for sure. And we see Spicy in the driver chat that they're brake jammed, so that explained why Spicy was going sideways into turn 1, sadly. And I do apologise for the stream, folks. It's looks to be out of my control at this point in time. Maybe if we get a dry race for race 2, this will pass. So SHS setting the fastest lap so far, 1:13.137. M1 Righty on the back of Alex. So Alex having a pretty decent race, to be honest with him. I didn't expect them to see him quite so far up, but they've held on to that 4th place for some time. But it looks as though they're now going to lose that to M1 Righty, who goes down the inside of turn 3. It looks to, but doesn't. So Alex has managed to hang on to that, but now M1 will have the run on them down the hill. Will they? Yeah, indeed, it looks as though they will make that move through. But Alex is really challenging them and doing their best to hold on to it. But M1 has managed to make that move work. So M1 up into 4th, having started pretty much last, certainly on the last row with Lost. Lost is now back up into 8th. Spicy Nuts we have lost, and NRG Panzerotto to go with Sancho Killer. So 3 drivers not able to make it through through the sprint race, sadly. So they will be starting at the back for the feature race, which comes up straight after this one. We're on lap 8 of 12, so only 4 more to go after this one. SHS leads the way from McT. Now with Joe Bean looking to close down McT at a rate of knots, it would seem. 1.5 seconds back from the Ferrari. M1 Righty has moved up into 4th. Alex in 5th. But Alex now coming under pressure from the Mercedes of SS7. So SS7 picking up the pace a little bit more, having got used to these wetter conditions, and perhaps the track drying out a little bit more is helping them and their intermediate tyres and suiting their driving style just a little bit more. But Alex doing a great job here in 5th for Williams. I think the highest we've seen of Williams in a race for quite some time. So good work by Alex. We've got SS7 there in 6th. If we go down to Lost, who's now made it up into 7th place, we'll be hoping to pick up the pieces for anything that happens in front of them. So M1 Righty, the biggest gainer in terms of moves forward, but Lost chasing them down. If they would love a good starting position for the feature race. The gap now between Lost and SS7 is about just over 1.5 seconds. Oh, and I saw a Red Bull spinning in front. That probably was Day 500. Yeah, so Day 500 was going sideways. They were being lapped, so they would not have caused a physical obstacle for our drivers. So SS7, M1 Righty sets the fastest lap of the race so far, 1:13.059. So M1 is going to be to look out for when we get into the feature race. Joe Bean sadly picks up a 3-second penalty. That will promote M1 into 3rd spot onto the podium for this race if they stay within 3 seconds of Joe Bean. I didn't obviously spot that for Alex actually. Let's have a quick look at the penalties. Went the wrong way, folks. Apologies for that. So yeah, 3 seconds for Alex and 3 seconds for Joe Bean. So at the moment, SS7 looks to be gaining quite notably from that penalty for Alex, and potentially Lost also. So Lost could move up into 6th spot, SS7 into 5th, and Alex will sadly drop down into 7th. Emeleki, after looking quite strong, is down there in 8th. Obo having a quiet race, it would seem, there in 9th. The Rebel of Matthew M down in 10th. Wands now down in 11th after picking up that drive-through penalty. M Dorling not having the best of days for them, but I suspect some damage early on in the race has disadvantaged them quite significantly. And then day 500, as we saw, spinning a little bit earlier. Fastest lap again for M1, so M1 going incredibly well at this point. Nice. Yeah, so we clearly have some technical issues in the commentary box here today, folks, but we'll get those sorted out for a little bit later on, so my apologies for that. We are on lap 11 of 12. SS7 still trying to find a way past El Alex, although they don't physically need to do that on track. They will get past them nonetheless. If we go back up to the front, Mac T has now dropped back 1.7 seconds from SHS, so SHS here leads the way on the sprint race. The top 8 places will get points here, so not the top 10 but the top 8 will get points. So Emeleki has moved up into 8th there, so that will put them into the last points paying position for the sprint. Mac T down here then in second, isn't really able to catch onto the back of SHS. Joe Bean has moved up nicely through the field and moving up into 3rd place. They do have that 3rd place on track, but they're going to lose it at this point to M1 Righty when they come over the line. We are on the last lap, so M1 Righty currently in 4th, but will be promoted to 3rd if they stay within 3 seconds of Joe. Then we've got El Alex on track in 5th, but SS7's going to take that place. Let us go up to SHS as we will see them come over the start-finish line at the end of this last lap to win the race. And then some drivers who probably wish they had a drier track and a better day, but they may get that in race 2, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for a dry race in race 2. We are in the Austrian mountains here, so the weather comes in from all angles and of all kinds, and we've definitely got rain for the sprint race. So SS7 coming round the back of the track here, setting a purple sector. Oh no, that has never happened to us before, but I suspected that was on the cards, folks. So hopefully we will get an invite back into the game. I think I understand from Pete has lost his connection also. So we are going to wait. So it could be everyone has lost their connection. Very sad. Okay, well, hopefully we'll be back and our owner SS7 will decide what we do with the finishing positions for the sprint race. I doubt we will run it again, but we will wait to hear. Yeah, we see quite a few in the chat. Yeah, SS7 is typing as well. So bear with us, folks, as we work this one out. Yeah, it looks as though all drivers have been kicked out. Yeah, everyone has been kicked out. So the questions will now be asked: do we restart? Do we do it again, or do we take the results? We were on the last. We were on the last lap, so certainly over 75% of the race, which in the real world would be declared a result if this was treated as a kind of red flag event. But we will see. So we're just waiting for some instructions to come through from SS7. We are back here in the lobby. It does look as though all our drivers are here, so it will really be up to SS7. I'm going to invite Pete back in here, folks. So, okay, so Pete's PC's rebooting as well. So it's a real day of technical challenges for us here today, folks. Yeah, literally every driver in our chat is saying that they got kicked at the same time. So perhaps a little bit of resetting of servers going on in EA has sadly disadvantaged us at the end. What was a pretty crucial moment in the race, to be fair, because SHS was just about to come over the line to take victory. They've been deprived that honour, sadly. So I'm just keeping an eye on the chat here, just so we know what's going to happen next. But it did look like it was going to be a win for SHS with MacT in second, and then M1 was going to be promoted into third. It doesn't look as though we're actually going to see that physically on screen because it never actually happened. So we see drivers returning to our lobby here, which is good news. So people having to restart their games. We fortunately didn't lose the game entirely, and I didn't lose the stream by the looks of things. So it just does look to be an EA problem. And then I see Andrew M, who is Matthew M in the on the grid here in our Twitch chat. That they had the Delta and then disappeared, and that's really difficult if you don't know what you're driving to as a driver. That is not particularly helpful, and that might explain why a couple of drivers got caught out with that penalty. So Andrew Matthews, take a snip of that if you've got the recording, send it through to the FIA, and that will be taken into consideration. The game can be a bit mad at times, and today is a great example of that. So let's just take a look at the main drivers chat here, see if I can see anything from the owner SS7 as to what we're... Yeah, no, we see a lot of people talking about the Deltas coming and going. So a real disadvantage for some of our drivers when clearly not their fault. Joe Bean is saying in the chat, we're not doing the sprint again, are we? I don't think Austria is their favourite track. So given that they were doing so well and we're going to be up there in about fourth spot, I don't really blame them for wanting to go straight to the feature race. This is where SS7 as the owner earns their keep, and we'll have to decide on the appropriate course of action. Yeah, we see Wands in the Twitch chat also confirming that their Delta disappeared too. Wands, thanks ever so much for that, and to Andrew for giving us that information. We don't see that, sadly. All we see is you guys getting a drive-through penalty, which is very unfortunate for all concerned. Whilst we're waiting for instructions from the league as to what's going to happen next, let me just take you back to our results from Spa. And I do want to reiterate again, and this isn't promoting M1 Racing, this is promoting the G-Force Racing Elite League, because this genuinely was a fantastic race from start to finish. You don't have to take my word for it. Go and watch it yourself on our Twitch channel and on our YouTube channel. It was wheel to wheel all the way through. We had literally 4 cars within a matter of tenths from each other for large portions of the race, and the driving was incredibly clean, incredibly close, and incredibly fast. And I would encourage you to go and watch that replay. We did have 4 DNFs from last week, as Joe and El Alex had a coming together in turn 5. That took both of them out, sadly. We lost Ace Pilot also, and PRS Roro, who was new to G-Force Racing, joined us in Spa. I don't think they are with us this week, but I know they're still with the league, so I believe they'll be coming back. Let's Go RFK. It was their first outing with the league. They finished last, but they did still finish, and that can sometimes be an achievement in itself. Wands didn't have the greatest of races in Spa, but they've been on the podium this season already, so we won't count them out, and we saw them going quite well earlier today until they had that drive-through penalty. Obo finished in 10th. Mr. Hannis, who we see in the Twitch chat earlier, they finished 9th, and they're going to be flying the flag on their own at the moment for Haas, with David T leaving the team. So they'll be looking for a teammate to join them. Spicy had a really strong start to the race, and we really thought McLaren was going to win last week. Wasn't to be. Spicy finished in 8th. David T, another strong and solid drive from them, a consistent driver, always scoring points. And that I think was, and David will kill me for getting this wrong, I could look at their stats in just a moment. I think that was 10 races in a row finishing in the points. So brilliant drive from David T again. M. Dorling continuing their strong form, finishing in 6th. SS7 starting to put a run of decent performances together after, I think, what they would say a pretty disappointing start to the first half to the season for them, but starting to move up the field, and finished in 5th in Spa. Lost was close to being the driver of the day for nearly everyone last week, but couldn't quite fend off the challenge from SHS in the end, finishing in 4th. Emeleki finished, as I say, in 3rd, getting advantage of Lost, trying to make a last ditch move on MacT right at the end of the race. Lost span out, Emeleki came through, and that put them on the podium. And then just really brilliant drive from MACT, and it's good to see them continuing to drive strong races for them and Ferrari. But no one yet can be SHS other than their teammate M1 Righty when they're around. But as we saw today, M1 had that significant disadvantage. So it looks as though, I'm just looking at the chat, it looks like we're going to go for a new lobby. So that might mean we disconnect very briefly while we do that. I'm going to keep the stream live, folks, and we'll keep talking here just for just for a moment. So it looks as though we are going to be making a new lobby. So all of our drivers are jumping over there. As the spectators, we're going to have to head over there too. So we're going to take a short break here, folks, and we will be back very shortly. And we'll let you know if we're having another sprint race or we're going to go straight into the feature race. Whatever it is, there's loads more action to come, so don't go anywhere, and we will be back very shortly. All right, folks, it looks as though we are going to be going back to full racing very shortly. It appears we're going to go straight into the feature race. So the results of the sprint, I think the SS7 will work out with the team principals after the race. Quite a lot to digest from that sprint race, not least the challenges we saw with unexpected drive-through penalties as well. But I thought while we wait for everyone to ready up, let's just take a look at the calendar from the season so far and what's to come. So we had our opening race in Bahrain on 3rd of January, then into Melbourne, which is where we saw David T and Wands finishing on the podium there for the first time for GFR racing. Then we had the sprint day in Portimao in Portugal, then to Jeddah, the incredible street circuit, second fastest track on the F1 calendar around the streets of Saudi Arabia, which gave us some pretty special racing. And then we had the epic race in Spa last week, and that's brought us to nearly the halfway point of GFR Elite League Season 2 in Austria. And next week we are off to the home Grand Prix for me and Pete in Silverstone in the UK. So if you're around next Wednesday at 8 p.m. UK time, definitely come and join us for that, and hopefully we'll have a little less of an disrupted session than we've had today. It's been a while since we've had one of these. I remember China from season 1, we ran into some problems, but that was more from some unexpected drivers who turned up on the grid. So first time we've really had any major technical issues, and perhaps we've been lucky with that as a league to get this far in before we've had our sort of first major hiccup. But we appreciate you sticking with us here on M1 Racing, and we're about to give you some more racing to consume as we go live with the feature race. So the game is just loading in now, I see, so let us head over there right now and let's get rid of the results from Spa, because that is old news. And here we are back in a very sunny Austria this time. So at least at the moment, there was some debate as to whether or not there was a potential of rain to come, and that may still be the case here if I think I'll need to wait for my timing screen to refresh, I suspect, before we see that. That's carrying over the forecast, I think, from the last race. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to restart my Racing League tools, and if you are a heavy user of F1 23, the game, and fancy getting some more telemetry, then the Racing League's tool is worth a look. All right, 5 lights are on. Okay, we are back under racing for the main feature race here in Austria, and the two Alpines really sandwiching the Ferrari, and I just don't think either Alpine driver knew where the other one was, and that's pushed all three of those drivers right back to the back, and M1 Righty is the real bad loser from that. We've got all sorts of changes going on at the front. We will go there in just a moment, but SHS, MAC-T and M1 Righty are right down the bottom. I think if we were to have a replay, which I'd love to have right now, I think we got the two Alpines going around, trying to get around the outside of the Ferrari, not realising that they're actually squeezing the Ferrari, and MAC-T had nowhere to go, and that's taken all three out. But what that's meant at the front of the grid here is that Joe Bean leads the way on their final race for G-Force Racing. They couldn't have hoped for a better outcome at the start. SS7, their teammate, is following them. So it's a Mercedes 1-2 right now on the first lap here, and Lost, having not been able to qualify, is currently in third, and they have pulled out over a second from the battle behind them. El Alex going strong, continuing their early pace from the wet sprint race we had, is in fourth, but now under pressure from Emelecki. So Emelecki has got past El Alex just before turn 3 here. So Emelecki is moving up into fourth place, and all of these drivers really benefiting from the troubles of SHS MAC-T and M1 Righty. I wish Rio was here, he'd have all sorts of things to say about those earlier corners. So Emeleki up into fourth, Alex drops down into fifth, and is now coming under pressure from Obo in the Alfa Romeo. We don't often see Obo this far up either. So Obo trying to make ground here, put Alex in the dry now, under some pressure, and try and make their way past. Because it's dry, we will get DRS, and this will help cars certainly with their overtaking, but also help these cars keep close together. Obo goes well beyond track limits here, and I do think track limits are going to play a significant role in the outcome of this race. I do think we still have some minor connection issues here with some glitching on the game, so that's a bit of a shame, but I think maybe the EA is having a bit of a bad day of it. We will do our best with what we've got, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that this race gets to the very end. Matthew M is going with Obo for Red Bull. We should no Pete is saying in my ear, oh my word, what's going on at the back? So let's go and take a look, and indeed we've got a whole gaggle of cars here as SHS is trying to make their way through. They're going round the outside, the long way round turn 4 there, trying to get past the Red Bull, and indeed has made that work. Spicy Nuts trying to go with, and both cars clip the rear wing, and does Mac T really just gets caught up in that event there. So the front and rear wheels of Spicy and the Red Bull coming together. The cars will be light coming around that corner, and that unfortunately has taken those out, and Mac T has dropped right down to the back of the grid. So Mac T, after having such a good performance in the sprint race until we lost all the connections for everyone, is now right down at the back of the grid and is in to the pits, probably for some damage. Going back towards the front of the field, SS7 has moved in front of their teammate Joe Bean, so they lead the way, and that is the power of DRS that really that will be dancing with each other to pull out and working as a team, most likely, to try and keep the fast charging Lost behind them. So Lost is, they are not under pressure from Emeleki behind them, and there's a 2-second gap now between the McLaren and the Aston Martin. So this group of 3 cars really starting to pull away, and it's going to make that much more difficult for the likes of SHS, M1 and others to try and get close to them. SS7 did look to go slightly beyond track limits, and as I mentioned, I do think it will play a role. The driver who has the most penalties in any one single race, we believe, is Let's Go Shumi, with 23 seconds at the end of the race, which is an awful lot of penalties to collect. But we can probably see a few more, maybe not 23 seconds today, but certainly a few more for a number of our drivers. SS7 holding on to that lead. Joe doesn't need to challenge them unless they need to help defend on behalf of their teammate SS7 in front of them. So these two Mercedes drivers very close together. SS7 was out of ERS, the battery charge there. We saw the red light flashing on the back of their car. So SS7 leads the way. It's a long while since we've seen SS7 in the lead of a race. As we said last week, one of the David T famous stats, which we posed the question to Rio last week, SS7 has only ever finished on the podium twice in the G-Force Racing League since it begun in season 1. But when they have finished on the podium, they have been on the top step. So they would love that sequence to continue here, but they've got still a lot of work to do. Now Joe has the DRS, so does Lost behind them, and indeed SS7 lets their teammate Joe Bean come through. So these Mercedes drivers working well together. Pete's rightly told me to bring up the tyres, and let's see what that's doing in terms of strategy. So Emeleki, one to watch out for. They're on the hard tyres, can take those a long way in this race, and safety car will have a significant influence on whether or not that is a good strategy. There's an awful lot of runoff areas here in Austria, so we may not necessarily see a lot of safety cars here today, because drivers can usually recover onto the track. Very disappointed with the lagging that we're getting on the game here today, folks. We don't normally have this issue at all, but we'll make do because the racing is good enough. So SS7 needs to keep up with Joe, although Joe is starting to try and pull away. But SS7 needs to try and keep Lost behind them and these Mercedes drivers to work together. We're going to drop back from this battle at the moment. Emma Leckie has not pulled away from El Alex. El Alex is on the medium tyres. So we'll have a little bit more pace in this the early stages of this race. We're on lap 7 of 36. So these medium tyres will be good for now and should have a little bit more pace than the hard runners. But as soon as those medium tyres start to go off, then they will start to disappear backwards into the clutches of those other hard runners. And maybe we'll see Emma Leckie move further up. Lost and SS7 were battling pretty closely. They are now. So Lost trying to find a way around the Mercedes. SS7 trying to hold them off, not able to make that work though. And Lost is going to be through as we come down towards turn 9. SS7 is out of battery, but no, it has a decent exit from turn 8 there, so it's helped them stay ahead of the McLaren as we come on to the start-finish straight. And SS7 has lost DRS to their teammate, so they are pretty much a sitting duck for the McLaren to get past pretty quickly here. And indeed, Lost is going to get past SS7, and they move up into second spot. So SS7 will be hoping to stay with Lost, use that DRS. There'll be another dose of DRS now between turns 3 and 4, down the back, up the top of the hill here in Austria. Great place to be, up the top of the circuit here. You can look down on pretty much the rest of the track. So Lost is now through and ahead of SS7. 1.2 seconds behind Joe Bean, but trying to close that gap down, get back into the DRS range, and that will suck them towards the Mercedes in front of them. Dropping down the grid to some drivers we haven't been able to watch for a little while. One of our new drivers, Sancho Killer 17, going around here in 9th spot at the moment. SHS has got past them just recently, so the Alpine starting to make up ground after that turn 1 collision with their teammate and MacT. So SHS has moved up into 8th. Sancho going with them, but they have M. Dorling behind on some hard tyres. So these hard tyre runners worth looking out for. They will be able to go quite some distance and will be on much quicker tyres and much lighter fuel loads as we come towards the latter stages of this race. We're not a third of the way through this race yet, so distance still to go. M1 is starting to make their way up. They're down in 11th at the moment, but 3 seconds back from M. Dorling. So got some distance to go, and if they've picked up some damage, which they may well have done from that turn 1 incident, could explain why they are not moving up quite as quickly as we might normally expect them to do. They've had a pretty tough race day so far, having had to start qualifying at the back, or start the sprint race at the back of the grid after the collision with the Red Bull during qualifying, and then that collision in turn 1. So they've had better days for sure, but they are now with M. Dorling and looking to get past. So they closed that gap down to M. Dorling very, very quickly. And indeed, I don't know if they they did just set the fastest lap of the race so far, 1:06.204. So no lack of speed for M1 Righty, it would seem, as they go past M. Dorling here. And indeed, NRG Panzerotto also looking to make a move through on the Alfa Romeo. So M. Dorling struggling a little bit round Austria today. But M1 Righty starting to move up through the field. SHS definitely has. Sancho Killer has sadly retired, so we've lost them on lap 10, and that has brought out a yellow flag in sector 1. We can see on our mini-map the very slow moving Alpha Tauri. Joe Bean has picked up a penalty. Let's bring those up. And I'm fearful for the game at this point. We can see the stuttering that we are getting intermittently on the game here, and that's causing havoc with our stream. 3-second penalty for Joe, 3-second penalty for SHS, 3 for NRG Panzerotto, and 3 for Spicy Nuts. The first of many folks that I think we will see here today in Austria. As the Red Bull has decided to head off into the barrier as well. That's when you try and get the power down coming out of that turn 3 there. If you get it down too quickly, the car goes light and it will spin you around ever so quickly, and that's what's happened to Matthew M. It's promoted Spicy Nuts up into 11th place. One struggling down there in 13th. Dave 500, one of the other Red Bull drivers, down in 14th. And Mac T really having a day they probably want to forget now, down there in 15th. So Joe Bean is leading the way, but with that 3-second penalty, it's going to promote Lost into the lead of this race if that's how it finished. But we're only on lap 12 of 36, 1/3 of the way through this race. We're with SHS, who's trying to recover from that turn 1 incident. We've got a battle going on between El Alex and Emma Leckie ahead of them also, so that's helping SHS close these drivers down. We'll bring up the tyres again because they are going to start to play a significant role as we reach the third, as we're at the third way point in this race. SHS trying to go round the outside of Alex. If they've got enough traction, they'll then have the inside for the next corner, which it looks as though they do. Now, Alex trying to hold on to the outside there, and I think, unless Alex has dropped out of that. Well, I don't know if there was contact, but Alex certainly disappeared from our screens and has now returned behind SHS. So SHS and El Alex perhaps had a moment there and a visit to the gravel. So that's moved SHS up into 5th place. Obo has gone with them. El Alex really losing out from that particular corner, and so they move up into 5th. We go back to the front of this race. Lost is right on the back of Joe Bean. So Lost doesn't need to fight Joe at this point in time. But we've got such a long way to go in this race. It's a dangerous game to play. We don't know what is going to happen in terms of safety cars and other events as the race evolves. Our timing screens are telling us only 2% chance of rain. So it looks unlikely that we are going to have rain for this second race of the day, which our drivers will be absolutely delighted about, I am sure, and they can just focus on their racing without having to worry about putting intermediate or wet tyres on. Lost has managed to drag SS7 with them as well, but Emma Leckie now, although they are 6 seconds back from that leading trio, has SHS right on their tail now. Those hard tyres have not really kicked in yet for Emma Leckie, although they're doing well in 4th place. We certainly won't criticise them for 4th, and they've started to put together some stronger performances in recent races. So SHS though closing that gap down at one point. It's just under a second, and I'd say I do fear for the game. We can see the times really jumping around on our screen, and I wonder what it must be doing to our drivers as well. So M1 righty also moving up. It looks like there was 3 wide at one particular point. So M1 now on the inside of El Alex. El Alex out of battery charge there. The Obo in the AlphaTauri bouncing wheels with El Alex, and then there's the other AlphaTauri and the Alfa Romeo, I should say, and AlphaTauri of M. Dorling and NRG Panzerotto closing these drivers down as well. 3-second time penalty for NRG Panzerotto to add to the collection that our drivers are going to get. So SHS has got onto the back of Emma Leckie here. They will now have DRS. And into the pits for El Alex. So they've definitely had enough of those medium tyres. I suspect it's going to be hards for El Alex, which they'll look to take towards the very end of this race. As we blast up the hill here, SHS has got an awful lot more straight line speed with the DRS than the Aston Martin in front of them. Hope for some decent traction out of turn 3, and using their DRS and perhaps a bit of ERS will get around the Aston Martin. Indeed they do, down the inside of turn 4, and that moves SHS up into 4th place. But now they have the 7.5 second gap to close up on SS7 in front. And the 2 Mercedes and the McLaren driver are pulling themselves quite significantly away from this group. SHS will be hoping for a safety car, and that will close up that gap in a knots. Joe Beans into the pits, so that promotes Lost into the lead of this race on track. And so Joe Bean will be switching tyres, probably onto hards. Indeed, they're onto hards. We didn't. L Alex has gone on to hards as well. That has moved SHS on track, at least, up into third place, but SHS yet to pit. And we can see who has pitted so far. NRG sadly has retired. They have left us from the game. Only 3 stops so far. 1 for Joe, 1 for L Alex, and 1 for Mac T. Mac T is going to go as far as they can on those. Pete's telling me soft tyres for Wands, indeed. So Wands is going for a blast here. We've got a yellow flag in on the pits start-finish straight again. I wonder if that's NRG. Yeah, no, Pete is confirming that's NRG. So they are hopefully going to be cleared out of the way. They are indeed. That yellow flag has now gone. And SS7 and Lost now into the pits, closing up very, really close under braking there. SHS is in also, so that all of our front runners here are into pits. SS7 onto hard tyres, Lost onto hard tyres. SHS, we're watching to see they're onto hard tyres as well. So all of that, these drivers hoping to go to the very end of the race on these. The gap when SHS came in to the front two was 7.5 seconds. We'll see when these drivers come back out onto track what that has done to the gaps in front. Emelecki is lapping faster than M1 Righty, and Emelecki is now in the lead of this race, has yet to pit, but when they do, they'll be onto the much softer, faster tyres, and Emelecki's position in this race is looking quite strong at the moment. So Lost and yeah, indeed, SHS is a long way back now from Lost and SS7. And Emelecki picks up a time penalty. I think I've got to stop talking about some of our drivers when they're doing well. I always seem to give them the commentator's curse, but sadly for Emelecki, they have picked up a 3-second penalty. And this will influence these race results, I am sure. So SS7 and Lost essentially will be in the lead of this race, with the perhaps the exception of Joe B might have something to say about that. They pitted also just before SS7, so probably Joe on track will be inheriting the lead of this race, but now SS7 is under a lot of pressure from Lost as they go round the outside as we come up the hill here, and indeed Lost moves through on SS7, but I think these two drivers have very similar pace. So I think we can see these positions change on a regular basis until we get to the very end of the race. We're at the halfway point. SS7 trying to find a way down the inside of Lost. There is contact between the two drivers. SS7 clipping the rear wheel of the McLaren there, but backs out of it. No significant harm done. SS7 doesn't gain an advantage. So was an ambitious move by SS7 to try and find a way through there. Door was closed on them, and Lost stays in the ahead of the Mercedes. So Peter's telling me about a good battle between Spicy and SHS, and indeed these two drivers very close together, had a great battle of their own in Spa also, but SHS is going to be moving past Spicy at this point. And this is an and Spicy going very wide there. So SHS on much newer tyres than Spicy. But if Spicy can stay with the Alpine for a little while, the race is not yet over. There's half to go, and they have yet to pit. So Spicy Nuts there, 18 laps in on their hard tyres, probably looking to go as far as they can and then get onto the softs, and then they will be lightning at the end of this race. So as we say, folks, on lap 19 of 36, the game playing all sorts of havoc in terms of the lagging and the glitching today, which we don't normally have. So really unfortunate. We hope we get to the end of it, and we hope this isn't the experience for our drivers in their cockpits. But we've got Lost now on the back of M. Dorling, and Lost making it their way through here and up into third place so far for the McLaren driver, and SS7 will be looking to do the same. M. Dorling's on some very old hard tyres at this point. I'm going to close down a couple of other things on my stream here just so that we give as much bandwidth as we possibly can. Spicy is into the pits. Pete, I've turned off my timing screen, so that sounds like a quote from Star Wars. Anyway, I've turned off my timing screen, so if you can just keep me posted on any significant changes there, I would be grateful. So, running order at this point, lap 20 of 36. Emilecki leads the way on very old hard tyres. Joe Bean has got onto the back of them. And Emilecki's doing a good job, actually, of defending against Joe. And Joe's out of VRS, but they do have DRS down the start-finish straight. And Emilecki will be able to go with Joe and stay with them. So, as I say, what Emilecki wouldn't do for a safety car right now. 20 laps for Emilecki on those very old hard tyres, but still with plenty of decent pace. M1 sets the fastest lap of the race so far, 106.033. So M1 has not lost their pace at this point. Much newer hard tyres. And yeah, a second faster, Pete is telling me, than Joe Bean. So M1 has some pace on those new hard tyres. They'll be looking to get on terms with their teammate SHS pretty quickly. And we see Emilecki now starting to drop back from Joe Bean. So Joe will have an awful lot more pace on those newer hard tyres. Lost, who's 3 seconds back from Emilecki, still has SS7 with them. So these two drivers going at it hammer and tongs. SS7 is definitely smelling a podium today, and Lost is hoping for a victory. Emilecki into the pits, so they're giving up on those hard tyres. We'll keep an eye, if you keep an eye on the column on your left-hand side, folks, you'll see what the drivers go on to. Emilecki's onto medium tyres, and that will take Emilecki on much faster tyres to the end of the race. M1 right sets another fastest lap, 105.847. SS7 now on the inside of turn 3, but a great switchback from Lost as the drivers come out of that corner there. Might help propel them back past SS7. And they do indeed have the inside for the next corner. So SS7 yields that place one more time. But it is helping Joe Bean extend their lead. They're now nearly 4.5 seconds ahead of Lost. So looking like a great day for Joe so far. We are not at the end of this race. So we've still got 14 more laps to go of this Australian Grand Prix here. Round 6 of the GeForce Racing League, bringing us to the halfway point for the Elite League on a rather challenging day from a technology perspective, but it's not letting it disturb our drivers here. So Lost is trying to get after Joe Bean as quickly as they can. Obo is into the pits, so getting off their very old tyres. M. Dorling is the one who's a standout at the moment, 22 laps in on their hard tyres, going as far as they dare. SS7 now trying to find a way past Lost one more time. They haven't made it work into turn 3, but they will now have the DRS. We're staying with this battle here for second and third, and now SS7 is going down the inside. Lost turns in no way through there, so SS7 moves back into the second place for Mercedes, and it's a 1-2 right now for Mercedes at the lead of this race. Here is M. Dorling. We haven't spent much time with them today, but they are running in 4th spot on those very old hard tyres. Pete, I don't know if you can tell me what M. Dorling's lap times are compared to 2 seconds slower than the cars around them, but not surprising given how old they are. It looks as though M. Dorling may actually be coming in now. Indeed they are. So they're into the pit entry lane, and it's really important for our drivers to stay there because we've got very fast cars coming around that same part of the circuit. So M. Dorling in to pit. They could well risk going on to soft tyres. We're going to stay with M. Dorling as they go through their pit stop. Indeed, M. Dorling onto soft tyres. Great gamble. I think it's worth a shot. So M. Dorling's going to be quick for the final laps of this race, and they're going to come out round, pretty much with their teammate Obo in front of them. So I think we could see a two-way challenge for 9th and 10th to move up on these soft tyres into the last races, the last few laps of this race here in Austria. Lost is 4.5 seconds back from SS7, from Joe Bean in the Mercedes. So keeping an eye on the circumstances at the front. Mac T, who is on some very old medium tyres at this point, has got onto the back of Wands. Wands, who was going so well in the sprint race earlier in the rain, has really unfortunately lost out, in the drier race here, as did Mac T, notably from that turn 1 incident. But they are trying to make their way through. They will have one more pit stop to go, unless they try and take these medium tyres right to the very end. But they will be getting a bit worn. Indeed, it does look as though Mac T is coming in. So good guess on my part. Take a bit of grass on the way into the pit lane, as they will definitely go on to soft tyres. Spicy Nuts will move up now into 12th place. And we've got Day 500, the Red Bull here, running last at the moment in 14th. Points for the top 10 finishers in the feature race. And I am going to bring up the penalties. Mac T, we did see Mac T go into the pits there. Pete was saying so we did see Mac T go in. They're on their way out now. So penalties right now. Day 500 has 9 seconds. Spicy's got 6. Emilecki with 3. SHS on 3. And Joe Bean on 3. Joe is doing a great job. So even though they've got that 3-second penalty, they would retain the lead of this race over the finish line. So it's looking good for Joe right now with 10 more laps to go. SS7 has also got out of the DRS of Lost. So that challenge from Lost, perhaps it has waned, or perhaps Lost is saving themselves and recharging their battery for one last charge. Let's put the tyres back up because they are going to play a role as we get towards the end of the race. Matthew M is the one on the oldest of the old hard tyres right now in the Red Bull. If we come down to them, Peter's telling me M. Dorling is fastest on track, so they are definitely going to leapfrog Matthew M at some point. I think Matthew M will be in for some soft tyres before this race is out. I don't think they have pitted yet either. No, they haven't. So Matthew M will need to come in. L. Alex is there still in 7th. Emilecki now having dropped back into 6th, but on those medium tyres. We'll keep an eye on them, although they do have a penalty. SHS, I'm jumping around the running order here a bit, folks, but it's a bit jumbled up after that turn 1 incident. And Pete Selmy lost his back into DRS of SS7, so was perhaps recharging their battery a little. SHS does have a penalty, so they've got a lot of work to do. Matthew M has gone into the pits now. We'll see them go on to soft tyres, I expect, and we'll see that pop up on the screen. And one's onto softs as well. So these soft runners not only looking to take fastest lap if they finished in the top 10, but also to move swiftly up the field. M. Dorling's got past their teammate, moved up into 8th spot. And I know M. Dorling and Obo work really well together. So that's a good partnership that might pay dividends towards the end of this race. So yeah, Matthew M has gone on to those soft tyres. SHS not really making ground on Lost. In front, they are stuck at about 7.5 seconds back. But the gap between Joe and SS7 and the leader of this race is now coming up on 6 seconds. So SS7 is really helping out their teammate by battling with Lost and allowing Joe to get away and potentially secure victory here on their last race with G-Force Racing, which we're very sorry to see them go, but maybe this might convince them to stick around for a couple more weeks. You never know. So Lost and SS7 still continuing to battle it out on lap 28 of 36. L. Alex sadly picks up a 3-second time penalty. That may hurt them with the fast approaching Alfa Romeos of M. Dorling and Obo. I'm going to come away from the Lost SS7 battle. It doesn't look as though that's going to finish anytime soon. M1 Righty's got past SHS, and that could be a smart move on SHS's part, given that SHS does have a penalty. So our two Alfa Romeo drivers certainly battling, it would seem here. No team orders, it would seem. They need to be getting after El Alex 1 pretty quickly, and then that will put them or give them the opportunity to go after Emeleki, but there's a long 10-second gap between Emeleki and El Alex, so and that's only getting larger with Emeleki on their faster tyres. Actually, let's go back to Emeleki, because on those medium tyres, they are coming onto the back of the Alpine drivers. And potentially we could mix this lot up. I'm really frustrated by the quality of the stream today, folks. I really do apologise. If there's anything we could do about it, we would. But sadly, it looks as though it's a game-related thing and not something we can control on our side. So do bear with us, and our drivers doing their best to give us some great racing for us to talk about nonetheless. So SHS, M1 Righty and Emeleki going great guns here, but Matthew M setting the fastest lap of the race, 1:05.552. So they've switched on those soft tyres pretty quickly. And if Matthew M can get into the top 10, they'll be picking up a point for the fastest lap of the race. And Spicy does have a 6-second penalty in front of Matthew M. So if they can close that down just another second and a bit, that 10th spot could be theirs. But they've got to get those soft tyres to the end of this race. There aren't many laps to go, though. We're on lap 30 of 36. Obo sadly picking up a 3-second time penalty there as well. So M. Dorling looking to get after. I do want to stay with this, but I've got my eye on M. Dorling and El Alex, because it does look as though we will have a battle there very, very soon. But these Alpine drivers not really able to get away from Emeleki, but they have closed the gap slightly to loss. So that down to 5.5 seconds now. These Alpine drivers working together to try and make their way onto the podium somehow. MacT definitely really struggling now. They've just gone onto their another set of medium tyres down there in 12th, and will be looking to move up if they can into the points, but it's been a tough day for them. Lost and SS7 are still going at it here for second and third on the podium. 5 more laps to go for Lost to try and get past the Mercedes driver. We don't want to miss a key moment between these two. 3-second time penalty for Emeleki, which unfortunately is going to disadvantage them in their battle with SHS. They did stand to actually leapfrog SHS at that point, but now with that 3-second time penalty, they're on the same amount as SHS. So Emeleki in 6th at the moment, likely to stay there, particularly with that 12-second gap. Pete's telling me Emeleki now has 6 seconds of time penalty, so that is pretty much going to be where they will finish, barring some kind of major change. Going to go down to M. Dorling and El Alex. I did mention this was likely to get pretty close. So M. Dorling has got down to about half a second behind El Alex, and they've dragged their teammate Obo with them. Let's bring up those penalties one more time. Indeed, so only 3 seconds for El Alex, but only 3 seconds for Obo. So if M. Dorling and Obo can get past El Alex, that moves them further up the field, and more points for the Alfa Romeo team, who have been doing much better in recent races, finishing much higher up the grid than we saw them in the earlier stages of the season. So really starting to settle in nicely for the Alfa Romeo drivers. M. Dorling will now have DRS on the Williams in front of them. Pete's telling me that we must keep an eye on M1 Right. He is running at a pace which might allow them to take third on the last lap, so we'll keep an eye on the front as well, as we see the game really break up one more time for us. But at the moment, Obo's got back past their teammate, and M. Dorling dropping back into 9th, which could also be a smart move on M. Dorling's point of view as well, because both drivers in front of them have got penalties, so they're immediately going to leapfrog them, perhaps don't need to get involved. They cannot get after Emeleki after that anyway, so why not just conserve your tyres and hang on the back of your teammate as you follow around the final laps of this race, lap 33 of 36 from the feature race. The sprint race, provisionally, I would say, won by SHS, but we will have to have that confirmed, as for those of you who were with us earlier on, all drivers lost connectivity at exactly the same time as we did in the commentary box, and we're seeing similar kind of connectivity challenges here today for G-Force Racing, and I do hope it isn't affecting our drivers in the same way. Let's go back up to the top. M1 Righty is now 2.5 seconds away from Lost. Pete's prediction of a last lap battle for the podium could be coming true. Lost is still with SS7, not really being able to put SS7 under too much pressure. SS7 is pulling over to the right hand side to break that DRS, try and break the slipstream in the DRS. Emelecki picks up another 3-second time penalty. That'll be 9 for them now. So do need to be a little bit careful, Emelecki. They didn't pick up too many more of these. Lost putting SS7 under pressure as we come up the hill into turn 3. He's not making a move there, and can use this to conserve their battery. But M1 Righty is now just 2 seconds back from the second and third runners. So we could well have lap 35 and 36 is going to get quite tasty as we come to the very end of this race. Joe Bean's driven magnificently, particularly after a pretty tough wet race, which even then I think provisionally they finished around about 4th, I seem to remember, when the game connection all broke up for everyone. So Joe Bean has probably had one of their best days for G-Force Racing on their very last day with us. Lost is still there, but we're keeping an eye on M1 Righty now. 1.7 seconds with 2 laps to go. The Alpine drivers are on a charge, closing down Lost and SS7 ahead of them. We don't see, there is more action further on down, but I think most of the significant action is going to happen up front here for us now. M Dorling really just following their teammate and L Alex around with all the penalties that are existing around them. Mac T is down there in 12th, they're one of the others with no penalties, and Wan's 8 laps in on some soft tyres, is again probably hoping for a better day in Silverstone next week than they've had here in Austria. So M Dorling does look as though they've got past El Alex. So those old hard tyres for El Alex have seen better days. M Dorling's still got some grip and some pace, and Obo's going to try and do the same. And Obo doesn't necessarily need to get past El Alex here. Peter's telling me they do. Now, that's interesting. M Dorling, I don't know if they had a moment there, but they've dropped right back to behind their teammate. So exchanging positions here. I don't know if that was tactical or if they had a moment coming out of turn 5. We are on to the last lap, folks, so this is it. Is Lost going to do it? Are our Alpine boys going to get on the back of this battle? If SS7 can hold on to second at the end of this back straight here, it's going to be very tough for Lost to get past. So SS7 has used every single last piece of ERS juice. Lost is going to try and find a way around the outside. SS7 will try and hold the inside. But now, as will Lost have the traction as we come down to the next corner? SS7, Lost trying to go round the outside, and there was contact, and that has helped, unfortunately, put Lost. And SHS has hit Lost as well. So Lost has lost out once again on the final lap of a race. SS7 is going to come over to finish second. Joe Bean has won the feature race here in Austria. Congratulations, Joe, on your final race with G-Force Racing. What a great way to sign off. Absolutely brilliant from the Mercedes driver, and we're sorry to see you go, but congratulations on a great race. SS7 takes second place on track. M1 Righty makes it up into third. SHS in fourth. Emelecki in fifth. And Lost eventually finishes in sixth after running so close to the podium for so long in that race, just as they did in Spa last week. Has unfortunately lost out once again. So heartbreaking for Lost and for McLaren was M1 Righty and SHS's gain as they moved up into third and fourth spot. M. Dorling has finished in seventh ahead of Alex. Obo could not get past the Williams driver. So they have finished down there in, I think, ninth. So we will have the full final classification here in just a moment. And you can just see how laggy the game has been for us today, folks. So M1 Righty is the games driver of the day. Pete, I'm going to ask you who your driver of the day is. Pete's gone with Joe Bean, and I'm going to go with Joe Bean as well. Brilliant drive from Joe. Did pretty well in the sprint race, to be fair, as well. So congratulations to Joe from us here in the M1 commentary box, and Joe rightly stands on the top step of the podium alongside their teammate SS7 and M1 Righty there. And we have the first new winner of a G-Force Racing Elite League race since Season 2 began. It's been Alpine all the way, but Mercedes have broken that run and they have taken the top step today. So Joe Bean is our victor here in the feature race. SS7 in second. The 1-2 for Mercedes. It's a while since we've seen that at the top of the GFR leaderboard. The two Alpines come home third and fourth. M1 and SHS third and fourth for Alpine. I think potentially SHS's lowest finishing position for quite some time. Emelecki in fifth. Lost in a desperate sixth place. I'm sure we'll hear more about their coming together with SS7 in a few moments' time in the drivers' chat. M. Dorling in seventh. Alex in eighth. Obo in ninth. Alfa Romeo picking up some good points. Mac T there in 10th. I think the fastest lap was for Matthew M, but sadly as they finished outside the points, they won't be picking up the fastest lap point as well. You need to finish in the top 10 to take advantage of that. And that brings us to the end of our round 6 here in Austria for G-Force Racing Elite League. What that's going to do to the overall standings and constructors, who knows? We'll bring that to you next week. And next week we are going to be in Silverstone. Our home Grand Prix for M1 Racing, and indeed the home Grand Prix for many of our drivers. So they will know Silverstone really well. Incredibly fast track. Great racing always at Silverstone. No sprint next week, and hopefully we'll have some better connectivity as well for us and our drivers. We made it through it today, and perhaps Rio picked a good week to skip. Rio won't be with us in Silverstone, but he will be back for Zandvoort in the Netherlands. So what I'd like to do now is just thank Pete, as always, for keeping me posted on everything that's going on, particularly with our technical issues today. To our drivers for giving us a great couple of races here in Austria and sticking with us as we dealt with those technical issues. And to all of you for watching, thanks ever so much for being with us. So we see I've just caught my eye for a message from Obo in the Twitch chat that Dorling didn't have a moment. He was just moved over to not let Alex have the DRS, and I think very, very smart, Obo. We did wonder whether or not that may have been a bit of a tactical switch and a good move. And good drive from both of the Alfa Romeo drivers today. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for commenting, because it keeps us occupied as well, gives us extra stuff to talk about. And we'll be back next week, 8 p.m. UK time here on M1 Racing, next Wednesday, for round 7 after the halfway point of the G-Force Racing Season 2. And we'll see if we get another new victor, or will Alpine be back on the top step. Join us next week to find out. Until then, stay safe and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.